Hello, everybody. How you doing? It's time to read The Bride of Corinth. This is the second poem that we're going to be reading in our horror literature class. And the purpose of our reading this poem is to search for literature, right, which shows vampire characteristics, right, so that it can help us in our essay at the end of the unit why the vampire legend has stayed popular for so many hundreds of years. So what we want to do is read these poems and just try to pull out examples of vampiric stuff, vampiric characteristics, so that it can aid us when we're writing this essay. Everybody cool? So we're going to read this poem and we're going to see what we find. Now, before we do it, The Bride of Corinth, I will tell you, this was written in 1797, right? Because you're going to do the same thing. You're going to fill out a vampire story page. So make sure on the top you're telling me written in 1797. This is a poem. The author's name is Johann Wolfgang von Goethe, right? And let's like I told you before, when we read a poem, and this is a longer one, so what we're going to want to do for the longer poems is we're not really going to be able to read it several times, because nobody has that much time to read this several times. It's going to take 20, 30 minutes to read. What I would do is after every stanza, break down that stanza, right? Figure out what happened just now, put it in your own words, and then write that little annotated note next to it. In fact, you're going to see that next to mine. Each stanza, and you're going to see I'm going to turn the page. Each and every stanza, I have some notes on the side. I put it into my own words. And then at the end, you have kind of a running story of what's going on. But before we get to that, and I will tell you now, we will not read this in one sitting. We'll do this in two. So it'll be about 20 minutes, one sitting, and then the next part of the class or the next class, we'll read the other part. Okay, so let's read about the poem first. We're going to find out in the intro material that this may have been based on some legends, some Greek or other legends. Obviously, we should find out what those legends are. And I did my research on that, and I'll read to you what that is. But first, let's read this. In 1797, the brilliant German poet and novelist Johann Wolfgang von Goethe published a poem titled Die Bride von Corinth, a poem that forever changed the way people saw vampiric literature. Later translated to The Bride of Corinth, this beautifully dark poem is believed to have been based on the classic tale by Phlegon of Tralles of the maiden Philonon. Okay, I looked it up, the legend of Philonon. Let me tell you very quickly what that is. It's about a girl who finds her dead sister had come back to life and was with a stranger to find joy. I'm going to say it again. It's about a girl who found her dead sister, like a teenage sister, had come back to life after dying, unfortunately, in her teen years. And she finds her with a stranger in the arms, back to life, and was with a stranger to find joy. What that really means, I think we're talking about here, is a young teenage girl in this legend dies before she has the opportunity to find a lover for the first time. And that would be kind of a crappy thing to not experience in your life, for people who die before they, find their first lover, for their spouse, who they're married to, and they can, there's something very special about, sharing your love with that person, both physically and emotionally. And that this teenage girl felt robbed of the fact that she didn't get to have that, I think, this physical relationship. She didn't get to have sex during her life. I know this is very, sorry, I have to say it, but she didn't get to experience that. So she came back to life in order to do that. And that's what this poem is somehow about a dead girl having sex with somebody in order to experience something that she felt she was robbed of during her life. Okay, I'm also going to tell you, and now this is just me. That's the legend of, what? Let's go on. The legend of Phlegon of Tralles. Now we know that. In Goethe's version, a young woman dies of grief, that's this, and returns from her coffin as one of the undead. In other words, as a vampire. And only in death, and then on death, can she find freedom. Another possible source of inspiration for Goethe's ballad may be the story of Menipus and the Empusa, told in the Philostratus life of Apollonius of Tyana. And that's, just so you know, I did a little research on that as well. That's described as a demonic phantom with shape-shifting abilities, various beasts to a woman. They said to be a long-legged bird leg, or like they have like kind of a donkey's leg. But when they see the young men that they want, they transform into a beautiful woman. And then they use that appearance of a hot young woman to seduce their young man and then they devour them. They eat them completely. When we do our research assignment for cultural origins, I think that's in like 4 or 5 weeks, you're going to look up different cultures and find out what their vampire legends are. You're going to find out that almost every culture in the world has a vampire somewhere in their history. It's really cool because they didn't talk 5,000 years ago, but yet at the same time, they all have pretty much the same legends, but they're just a little different. And a lot of these legends, they have vampire creatures that do exactly what we're talking about right now. They pretend, they turn into beautiful women or men, and then they seduce the opposite sex. They lead them in, and then once those people come in and like, oh, hey, how you doing? They eat them, they kill them. And that's what we're hearing about now. That might be a possible source of inspiration, that Von Goethe heard about these stories and was like, I'm writing a poem. I'm writing a story about this. This is too cool. Listen, last thing. So this story tells the story of star-crossed lovers. Star-crossed lovers. You know what star-crossed lovers are? Lovers who shouldn't love each other. Romeo and Juliet were star-crossed lovers because they knew that by loving each other, they were going to piss their parents off and there was going to be a big problem. All right? Those are star-crossed lovers. In other words, their love is not at the right time and it's not going to work out very well because of outside circumstances. Let's continue. They were betrothed as children, which means their parents, these are the old days, these like in like 500-600 years ago, 400 years ago in the Middle Ages, girls didn't decide who they married. Their parents decided for them. So we're finding out that in this poem, when these characters, and these characters are in their teen years now, but when they were children, they were betrothed as children. You know, the parents said, you are going to be married to each other. And as you know, if anybody has any little brothers or sisters, if you tell a child 5 or 6 something that even though you're joking, kids often take things very, very seriously, right? Now, they were serious when they told their kids that, but they told their kids that when they were 5 or 6. So they grew up always thinking and knowing that. So the bride's family has since converted from the old magical gods to the new religion of Christianity. So back in the day when they were children and the two sets of parents met, they were both pagans. In other words, both families believed in multiple gods. So that's why they were like, hey, I'm a pagan, you're a pagan, let's marry our pagan kids together. Cool. And they planned on doing that. But the problem is the mom of the girl has since, in these interlapping 10 or 12 years, she's since transformed into Catholic. She's turned herself into a Catholic or into a Christian. So she now follows one God, the Catholic God, right? So she's not going to want her daughter to marry this pagan anymore, right? She's going to want him to marry a Catholic as well. Let's continue. When he comes to claim her, the mom puts him in a room to rest. So that's where this story starts. He's going to show up like around midnight, and she's going to stick him in a room to rest. Okay, while his sleep, so he falls asleep, we'll see if he falls asleep or not, his betrothed comes to him. So I don't know why she kept him if she didn't want him to marry her daughter, but she puts him in a room and he shows up at night. Maybe she's going to kick him out in the following morning. But during that night, the daughter comes up to the room and spends some time with him. Yes, exactly. That's what I'm saying. While consummating their marriage, in other words, while they let's just say it. Or he, horrible, really bad one. So let's go. You guys ready? Now, out there are 28 stanzas in this poem. We're 14 and then stop. That'll be the end of part 1 of the Bride of Corinth. So let's go. Once a stranger youth came to Corinth. To Corinth came, who in Athens lived, but hoped that he from a certain townsman there might claim, as his father's friend, kind courtesy, son and daughter they had been wont to say, should thereafter bride and bridegroom be. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to tell you what my little side note is at this point. And my suggestion is for you to jot that down next to your, or type it down next to where you have it on your little annotation. So in this, we find out that a young man hopes to marry his father's friend's daughter, that he was promised to her years ago. Okay. But can he that boon so highly prized, saved his dearly bought, now hope to get? In other words, but he's coming hoping that this is going to, but is he going to get what he came for? You know, is he going to get married to this girl that he's hoping to get married to, that he was promised to? They are Christians and have been baptized. He and all of his are heathens yet. So they're saying, is he even going to be able to marry her? Because they're Christians now and he's still a pagan. He and his family are still pagans. For a newborn creed, like some loathsome weed, love and truth to root out oft will threat. So the problem is, they're Christians. He's not. See, he doesn't. I don't know if he knows that. I think he does because they're describing, and I think he shows up and he's like, you know what? I don't care if they're Christian. This girl was promised to me. I'm taking her. I'm going to make her a pagan again. Let's see. Let's read. Father, daughter, all had gone to rest, and the mother only watches late. She received with courtesy the guest and conducts him to the room of state. Wine and food are brought, ear by him besought. So everybody else is asleep, but the mom is waiting up late. I don't know why. Why is mama? I mean, maybe she's just a late sleeper. Some people stay up later than others. Was she waiting for him? Did she know he was coming now? Don't know that either. But the little note for this little stanza is mom puts the young man in a guest room. So she puts him in a room. She brings him some wine and some food. Let's continue on. Bidding him good night, she leaves him straight, but he feels no relish now in truth. For the daintily so profusely spread, meat and drink forgets the wearied youth. And still dressed, he lays him on the bed. Scarce are closed his eyes when a foreman hies through the open door with silent tread. So he looks at the food and he's like, I'm not hungry. I'm too worked up, whatever. I can't eat. So he lays down in the bed to go to sleep, right? Right before he falls asleep, he hears somebody at the door. Someone comes in. By his glimmering lamp, he discerns now how in veil and garment white arrayed. So the first thing he notices is a woman, a girl standing in his doorway, and she's got a veil and a white garment on. What is that? Yes, she's wearing the wedding dress. So when he sees her in a wedding dress, his thought is, cool, this is going to happen. I'm going to marry this woman. With a black and gold band around her brow, glides into the room a bashful maid. But she, at his sight, lifts her hands so white and appears as though so full afraid. So this is interesting. So a young girl in a wedding gown comes in, but two things to note. She, at his sight, lifts her hand so white. So they say she is very pale. Now, I'm on team pale. I'm incredibly white, right? I'm very pale. I don't get much light from the sun. It's just my family and I don't get, we're very pale people. Does that make me a vampire? No, I don't think so. No, so far, no. But in this vampire poem, that is definitely a vampire characteristic. So I would highlight that. Lifts her hand so white. So if you're going to say that you believe this is a vampire poem, you might say, because look how pale she is. That's a vampire characteristic. And appears as though full sore afraid. So she's dressed in a garment. She's incredibly pale. And for some reason, she's afraid when she sees this man. Not excited and happy. She actually starts to be afraid. Let's read on. Am I, cries she, such a stranger here, that the guests approach they could not name? Why didn't anybody tell me you were here? Ah, they keep me in my cloister drear. Well nigh feel I vanquished by my shame. On thy soft couch now, slumber calmly thou. I'll return as swiftly as I came. Very strange. She comes in and first she says, why didn't they tell me you were here? And then she points out, they keep me locked up in my cloister drear. That means they keep her locked in the basement. And she doesn't understand why. She says to go to sleep. She says, okay, you go to sleep. I'll be back. Okay. Stay, thou fairest maiden, cries the boy, starting from the couch with eager haste. Here are Ceres's and Bacchus' gifts of joy. Amor bringest thou with beauty graced. Thou art pale with fear. Loved one, let us hear. Prove the raptures the immortal's taste. He says, stop. I brought you gifts. Now, this is a smart guy, right? He knows a good way to get a young girl to turn around and talk to you. She's like, I got to go. I'll be back. He goes, no. Come back here. I brought you gifts. I got you some necklaces. I got you some silver. And a lot of girls would turn around and go, oh, you brought me that? What did you bring me? And they might come back and have a little conversation. So he says, don't go. I have gifts for you. She screams and oh, by the way, there was another one with pale there. Did you hear that? He says, they're a pale with fear. Stay here. So he notices she's afraid. He says, come here. I'll make you feel better. I got some gifts for you. But maybe she's not pale with fear, buddy. He doesn't understand yet. Why is she? She might be a vampire. But let's continue. She says, draw not nigh. O youth, afar remain. She says, no, don't come near me. Rapture now can never smile on me. Okay, guys, whether or not you've done your vampire characteristics, you've done that research yet, I need to tell you this now. In fact, I'm going to do this during these poems. If we were in class, I would have asked you, does anybody know what this is talking about or whatnot? But I need to talk about this. Rapture. She says, rapture now can never smile on me. Rapture means going to heaven after you die. That's your rapture. You might say, I'm going to my rapture. That means somebody is about to die and they're expecting to get raised onto heaven and spend the rest of their time with God and the angels and all that good stuff. If it's true. Again, if it's true. I don't know. I haven't died yet. I just don't know. And I'm not telling you to believe it, by the way. Just understand it for this poem. But anywho, she says, rapture now can never smile on me. In other words, I am barred from heaven. I cannot talk to God anymore. So stay away. I can't go to heaven anymore. That is a really big vampire characteristic. Barred from heaven and God's grace anymore. You can't read any Bibles, can't touch anything Catholic, nothing. For the fatal step, alas, is taken. The fatal step, alas, is taken. I've been killed. Listen, through my mother's sick bed fantasy. Cured, she made this oath. Youth and nature both shall henceforth to heaven devoted be. Oh my God, are you ready for this? Her mother turned her into a vampire because God saved her mother's life. On her mother, look, my mother's sickbed fantasy. Basically what this tells me is while her mother was dying on a sickbed, she made a deal with God. If you help me survive, I will donate my kids to you, or at least one of my daughters. I will donate them I will sacrifice my child so that you will save me. By the way, it's ironic that she would consider herself a Christian. It's a very pagan thing to do. They would do that in the old days. They would sacrifice, young ladies every year so that their crops would grow or the storms wouldn't happen. And by the way, guess what happens? Nothing, because that doesn't work that way. But we're finding out mom did do that to her own daughter. She sacrificed her own daughter, right? So that she would survive. Now, let's say she was dying and she said, God, if you help me live, I will do this nasty, awful thing to my daughter. Just because she came back to life. Does that mean, or she was healed, does that mean that God helped her? No, it just means her sickness passed, right? But she apparently believed it so much that she donates her kid to this. She turns her kid into a vampire. She basically kills her own child. Listen. Cured, she made this oath. Youth and nature both shall henceforth to heaven devoted be. She says, stay away. I am out of God's grace. That's what the girl is saying to the boy. Don't come near me. I'm out of God's grace. I'm not safe anymore. It's kind of nice that she tells the boy this because the mom never told her that. But listen, let's go. From the house so silent now are driven all the gods of rain who reign supreme of yore. She says, we're not a pagan house anymore, right? This is a Catholic house. One invisible now rules in heaven. On a cross, a savior they adore. Victims slay they here, neither lamb nor steer, but the altars reek with human gore. So she says, in the basement, my parents do sacrifices. So it's funny that they would call themselves Catholics, that they're sacrificing people down there in the name of God, but have people killed people in the name of God? Oh my gosh, a lot of wars over the history of time have started because people say, God told me to kill you. Right? I mean, I'm not even going to go into it. We don't have enough time to go all the different examples of that. But let's continue. So this is not a pagan house anymore, but a Christian one. And something bad happens here in the basement. But the altars reek with human gore. I think I understand what's happening here. I think the mom feeds the daughter human beings in the basement. And that's the deal that she thinks she made with God so that she could stay in God's grace. She'll feed her daughter all these people down there. Madness, I know, but that's what it seems like. Let's continue. And he listens. And every word he weighs. So remember what we've got here. We've got this teenage guy who's, at the height of his lust, right? He's coming to take his bride, to marry her, and then to consummate their marriage. He's been thinking about this for a long time. So he finds her. She comes. She's all dressed in white. He's like, word, this is going to happen. I love this. This is fantastic. I'm so excited. And she says, no, don't come near me. I'm not safe. Now, you guys know about teenagers. Put this in the position of today. A boy who's expecting, or even a girl, but let's go with the boy today. A boy is expecting some kind of romantic action with a girl, and he's waited a long time for it, right? Which, by the way, he should, and they should, because, you're just kids and whatnot, but we're talking literary here now, right? Obviously, we're waiting until marriage, everybody, but we're talking literary now. So this boy goes to the girl, and they're all ready. He's ready. He's like, let's go. And she says, sorry, can't do it. There's something wrong with me. Do you think a lot of boys would be like, oh, I don't care about that. I'll take my chances? That's exactly what this guy's going to say right now. Listen. And he listens, and every word he weighs, while his eager soul drinks in each sound. Can it be that now before my gaze stands my loved one on this silent ground? Pledge to me thy troth through our father's oath. With heaven's blessing will our love be crowned. So she says, stay away, I'm unsafe. And he goes, is that you? Is it you? Is it us? Are we doing this? I don't think he even really listened to her, but let's continue. Kindly youth, I never can be thine. And she says it again. No, kind man, I can't be yours. She says it to him straight up. Kindly youth, I never can be thine. 'Tis my sister they intend for thee. When in thy silent cloister pine, with inner arms remember me. Thee alone I love, while love's pangs prove, soon the earth will mail my misery. All right, now it's getting weird. He says, is it you? And she says, no, it's not me. It's now my sister they mean for you. What I'm getting here, and I'm figuring this out, mom had 2 daughters, right? The first one, the one that's in the room right now, is the one she promised so many years ago to this boy. But in the interim, she has since sacrificed this girl to vampires so that she could become a vampire so that mom can continue in God's grace, which doesn't make any sense to me, but that's what mom did. She now believes, or the mom's plan is to give her other daughter to this guy, is what the girl's believing, right? She says, no, my mom wants you to marry the other daughter, not me. See, I don't know what's going on right now. I'm sensing a little weirdness. I actually think that everybody's getting messed with. And where do they intend this boy to end up? I think he's going to be downstairs in the basement, and he's going to be dinner for this daughter. But let's wait and see. So she says, no, I'm not supposed to be your bride anymore. It's my sister they want for you. And he says, no, for this by glowing flame I swear, Hymen hath himself propitiation shown. Let us to my father's house repair, and thou find that love is not yet flown. He says, to heck with her. I want you. So let's run away. We'll go to my father's right now. We'll get married. We'll consummate this relationship. He says, Hymen hath himself propitiation shown. He says, let's go, consummate. We'll become lovers. Everything will be great. He says, sweetest here that strikes, and without delay, hold we our wedding feast alone. He says, let's roll. Let's run. Let's go get married together. They exchanged their tokens of their truth. They exchange tokens of their truth. She gives him a golden chain to wear. So she goes, okay, let's do it. So they exchange their gifts, right? So what does she do? She gives him a golden chain to wear. And now this is where it gets interesting. And a silver chalice would the youth give her in return of beauty rare. So she says, here, take this gold necklace. You be mine. He says, you take this beautiful silver chalice. You be mine. But she says, that is not for me. Yet I beg of thee, one lock only give me of thy hair. So he tries to give her this beautiful silver cup, and she says, nope, can't have that. You may or may not know this yet, whether or not you've done your characteristics for vampires. You may not have gotten this one because there's so many, but vampires cannot touch silver. They cannot have it touch their skin. They can't even be near it. It's like kryptonite for vampires. He tries to give her a silver chalice, and she's like, can't touch that. Nope, get it away from me, please. So that's another vampire characteristic right there. She's very pale. We have 1. 2, she can't touch silver. 3rd one, by the way, she said, Rapture now can never smile on me. So already you can fill out your vampire story page, but I would suggest this to you. Never choose whether or not something is a vampire story until you've gotten to the end, because things could change, right? We could realize that this is all a dream, or who knows, maybe she's a witch. I don't know, but let's find out. So he tries to give her a chalice, and she can't take it because it's silver. But she says, that is not for me. Yet I beg of thee, only one lock give me of thy hair. She says, give me a lock of your hair. That's the gift that she wants from him. And I don't know about you, but giving somebody a lock of your hair, some people believe that by giving them a part of your hair, that they could do things with that against you, that they could like create dolls or something, or use it as a way to control or hurt or even kill or maim you. I don't know if that's anything to do with this, but let's read on. Now the ghostly hour of midnight knelled. So they hear the clock telling midnight. And she seems right joyous at the sign. That's another vampire characteristic. You don't know this yet, or you might, don't know. But vampires are at their weakest at midnight, right? And they're at their, weakest at noon, at 12 o'clock noon, and they're at their strongest at midnight. That's when their powers are at their strongest. Super strength, They can read minds. They can use telekinesis. They can move things with their minds. Some people say they can turn into mists and bats and control wolves and control rats. They can do all these things. At midnight is their strongest. So when the midnight bell tolls, she smiles. She gets very happy. Is that because her powers are at their best? I don't know. To her pallid lips, the cup she holds. Pallid lips means very pale lips, but she drank nothing of the blood red wine. For to taste the bread there before them spread, naught he spoke of could make the maid incline. Remember, there was all that food and wine that the mom let out? He says, honey, baby, drink. She will not touch the wine, and she will not touch the food. Nothing he can do can get her to do it, by the way. He begs her to drink it. Please drink the wine. Please have the food. This is our marriage feast, our pre-marriage feast. She won't touch it. Another vampire characteristics. They cannot drink anything or eat anything other than blood of the human. Well, some people say they can drink like cow blood and pig blood and chicken blood and turkey blood, but mostly it's human blood. And she can't drink the wine, which tells me she can only drink human blood, which is another reason saying this girl's a vampire. This guy probably at this point should get the heck away from her. She's already told him, I can't go to heaven. So let's wait and see what happens. We will pick this up tomorrow from this point. Have a lovely day. You don't have to complete the vampire format page until we're done with this poem. That's when it will be due, the day after we're finished with this poem. But at this point, you certainly have a lot of things filled out. Another thing I want to point out, let's say you have 3 vampire characteristics, right? She's pale, says she'll never go to heaven, won't touch silver. But then more vampire characteristics come up, right? That, she gets happy at midnight, that her lips are pale, that she won't eat any of the food or drink. A lot of students at this point would say, well, I already have my 3 notes. I'm stopping there. I'm good for my homework assignment. Guys, this assignment isn't for me. I mean, yes, you're going to get graded on it. It's a 100-point assignment, and that will add into your final grade. But the purpose of this assignment is for you, for your final essay. So the more characteristics you have, the better it's going to be for you later. So yes, you have 1, 2, and 3 filled out, but let's say you get 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Just jot those off to the side or on the back or on another piece of paper. More is always better than just enough. So don't stop taking notes because you've gotten to the point where your teacher has told you that's all you need. No. Keep going for more. I'm going to give you more and more of these characteristics. You should be pointing to them. Writing them down. Fabulous job today, everybody. We'll pick this up again tomorrow. Have a great day.